Alright, let's go through some LS engine trivia real quick. I'm not the god of LS's. I don't know everything. But if you're a beginner trying to get in the LS world and you don't know what is what and how to tell anything, then this is probably a good starting video for you. 4.8, 5.3, 6.0. Gen 3s are the first generation of the LS. Okay, so they came in your Suburbans, your Tahoes, your Yukons, Silverados, etc., etc. Camaros, stuff like that. So, right off the bat, you probably heard of LS1 and LS6. So, the LS1 and LS6, just take a 5.3 truck motor, make the block aluminum, bore it 30 over, and add a little bit spicier camshaft to it, different intake, stuff like that. Pretty much the foundation is the same. LS1, LS6, 5.3, the foundation's the same. The 4.8 shares the same block as the 5.3, but the 4.8 is the black sheep of the family because it has flat top pistons with a shorter stroke. In some cases, people would rather have the 4.8 versus the 5.3. Some run boosted applications, stuff like that with the 5.3. Now, the interchangeability, you could put flat top 4.8 pistons on a 5.3 rotate assembly, and now you have a flat top piston 5.3 with a little bit higher compression ratio. I'm going to assume 10 to 1, 10.5 to 1, somewhere in that neighborhood. So the 6.0 shares the same stroke, same crank, same rods, same block foundation, just with a bigger bore, a 4-inch bore. 6.0 has. So you could take a crankshaft out of a Gen 3 5.3 and put it in a 6.0 and the rods, and it's going to be just fine. So now you understand kind of the concept between the 4.8, 5.3, and 6.0. Relatively, and as long as it's a Gen 3, it's all the same. One has a bigger piston than the other. One of them has a shorter stroke than the other, which is the 4.8. Gen 4s, parts can swap, especially rods. Gen 4 rods are normally floating. They're not a press style fit. You can put a Gen 3 crank in a Gen 4 block and vice versa, but it's not going to work because the reluctor wheel on the crankshaft on a Gen 3 is a 24X, I think, and the other one's a 58X. So the crankshaft sensor is going to be trying to pick up wrong information if you swap them. So just don't do that. Then you got Gen 4 problems like the lifter problems, the active fuel management, displacement on demand, and stuff like that. That's why they make DOD delete kits for all that stuff, because it's known to fail, which is activated by oil pressure through the valley cover. But the most popular swap that you can do, the most easiest, if you want to go the easiest route whatsoever, then just go get a Gen 3 LS. Now, if you want to tell the difference between a 5.3 and a 4.8 in the Gen 3 world, take a spark plug out, go get one of them cheap little cameras, run it in the spark plug hole. If that piston is flat, you have a 4.8. If that piston has a slight dish in it, you have a 5.3. Now, the 6.0s, you got two different types of 6.0s, Gen 3. You got the LQ4 and the LQ9. The LQ4, pretty much a 2500 HD truck motor, yada, yada, yada. And it's the same thing as the 4.8 and the 5.3 difference. The Gen 3 LQ4 6.0 The LQ4 has dish pistons, lower compression. The LQ960 has flat top pistons, higher compression. You're not really going to find an LQ9 in a junkyard unless you're going to go look in like an Escalade or like a Vortec Max truck or something in that era. The LQ9 is more sought over because of the higher compression ratio, but you know, whatever. You know, a 6.0 is a 6.0. You can make tons of power with lots of options out there to make that happen. Gen 4s, you're going to run into a little bit different of a problem because as Gen 4s went on, the pistons started looking the same. So it's kind of hard to tell the difference between 4.8, 5.3 on a Gen 4. You'll have to run some part numbers and casting numbers and stuff like that. And I can't say that for all of them. I don't have much experience with the Gen 4 LS. I'm a Gen 3 type guy just because everything is self-identifying pretty much. Now, if you have a Gen 5 LT, the newer version, LT heads will physically bolt on any Gen 4 or Gen 3 LS block. But the dowels on the heads that locate themselves on the block, those have to be swapped in opposite corners. Also, on the Gen 5 LT cylinder head, the intake and exhaust valves are on opposite sides. So if you don't swap the camshaft with a reverse fire camshaft or whatever it is, when the intake valve is supposed to open, the exhaust valve is actually going to be opening. So that's going to screw up that deal right there. So you're going to have to go to someone like Brian Tooley Racing and tell them that you're doing that cylinder head swap. You're putting an LT head on a LS block, and they're going to grind you a custom cam for that. Whatever lift, whatever duration, whatever low separation angle, whatever. But just so that it will fire correctly, they already know the plan and what's going to happen. That pretty much wraps up just a quick, fast-talking video about the LS Gen 3, Gen 4, and Gen 5 cylinder head swaps and stuff like that. There has been gains seen, especially in carbureted applications. The Gen 5 head making phenomenal power. Actually, I think Horsepower Monster, if you go on their YouTube channel, they actually did a Gen 5 LT engine, complete Gen 5 LT engine, and they blocked off the direct injection holes and stuff like that. They ended up putting a carbureted intake on it, massive carburetor on it, and that thing made a ton of power because the Gen 5 makes a lot of compression. I think it's like 11 and a half to 1, something like that. But kind of hard to find them in the junkyard now. You have to get lucky and just come across a wrecked truck. But yeah, if you just want the easiest thing, just to go, just 2000, well, I think it's 97 actually, is when they first started that crap. 97, 98, something like that, is Gen 3 LS. Like I said, the LS1 and the LS6 is pretty much the same. Same bore, all that stuff. So don't worry about any of that. 4.8 Black Sheep of the family just has a different stroke and a flat top piston. The 4.8 and the 5.3 shares the same block, same bore, stuff like that. There's no difference. It's just in the stroke. Like I said, the 5.3, easy to identify in a Gen 3, has a dish piston. You don't really have to look at anything else. All parts are interchangeable, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. If you want to put 706 or 862 heads, if you want to swap heads or whatever, I think you can actually run 317 6.0 heads on a 5.3 or a 4.8 or whatever. I don't think the intake valve is going to contact the side of the cylinder. Could be wrong. I don't know. If I am, leave it in the comments. But I think that pretty much wraps it up. They do have the Trailblazer SS slash Gen 4 intakes. They have been known to pick up power, but that you do have to run it's like a fuel regulator that has a built-in return style fuel line. You have to run that. I think it just blocks it off. I'm not too sure about that, but they do offer something like that to make that work. But I'm going to say that wraps it up. Also, don't forget, all the help I can get, I need it. So if you have time out of your hard working day, just hit the subscribe button and the like button if you can. We appreciate you here at Slick and Clutch.